Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. So I'm Natasha from the Red Pen, and I have with me Dr. Kim Dixit today. So we are going to be talking about the changed essay prompts and how what you can do this year to kind of tackle these new essay prompts. Um, it's going to be a great session. So keep the comments going. We're going to address a lot of your questions around the new essay prompts. I mean, forms have gone live, so I can imagine that there could be a lot of confusion right now. So what to get us going, please feel free to post where you're joining us from, and if there's any specific school you're planning to apply to this year, post that in the comment section, so we can kind of take a look at it as comments are rolling in, and we can make the advice that we're giving more specific to the schools that you're planning to apply to today. As soon as our presentation is up, we are going to start our conversation around around what we're going to talk about today. So keep going, keep posting which schools you're planning to apply to, round one, round two, and we'll kind of make sure we reference them. We are going to have a special offer for anyone who stays with us until the question and answers, who stays with us till the end. So we have like a service around our resume evaluation, which is a paid service, and we're going to be giving out, making a special offer. Stay with us till the end, and you'll see how you can avail of it. So let's start by talking about what we're going to cover today. So, Kim and I we've been with the Red Pen for very long, and, we have cumulatively about decades of, experience just helping people with MBA applications to the top schools, US, Europe, and Asia. Today, what we're going to do is we're really going to talk about the changes that we're seeing as new forms are announced for business schools this year. And what we want to do is really give you some tips in terms of the perspective that you need to have as you're looking at these new forms, and how you need to kind of read a lot of these essay prompts. What is it that you need to take away from the questions that are being asked, and how you can create like a strategy to really respond in a meaningful manner, in a way that really does your application credit and boosts your chances. So with that, I think, Kim, why don't we just spend some time talking about application essays? I think that would be a good way to ease into this topic.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Natasha. It's really exciting, actually. I've been doing this for about 12 years. And I feel like when I first started, a lot of essays would change regularly. And then suddenly changes sort of stopped, or they became very minimal. So this is kind of an exciting year where we see a lot of really cool opportunities to say something different and approach this in an interesting way. So what I want to say a little bit about is, yes, the essays have changed, and we want to talk about how you can take advantage of the new topics to kind of shine and say something, different about yourself, and maybe appeal a little bit more directly to admissions offices, because we know based on these questions what they want to know, and it's quite specific. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. But in general, what is the purpose of all these essays, right? So why are MBA programs sort of asking students to write essays, right? There's also a lot of other evaluation that goes on in the process where they're looking at your undergraduate grades, they're looking at your work experience, they're looking at they're looking at your recommendations. There's so many other pieces, but then there's this essay piece. And so the question is, why do they do this? And in many parts of the world, academic programs don't ask for essays. So why are these programs asking? So first thing I think that we want to say is, the first way of looking at it is, that it's really all of that other information, your grades, your GMAT score, your work experience, etc., that's all sort of static. So this is an opportunity for you to kind of bring it to life. What is the context for why you work where you work? What is the context for why you studied what you studied? Who are you? Who's the person who made those decisions? So the essay really gives you an opportunity to kind of tell that part of your story. And similarly, it's your opportunity to talk about how you're different. There may be, 500 people who are economics majors in college applying, but how are you a different kind of economics major? How did economics drive you in a way that's different from someone else? So it gives you an opportunity to differentiate yourself and talk about how you're unique. It also gives you an opportunity to talk about, again, there's so many business school programs, so why are you applying to this one? Who are you? Who are they? How does this fit work? So this is another thing you can do in your essay that I think is really a great opportunity, and it's a very powerful way to kind of to show the business school program, that you understand them and you understand them in a way that's relevant to who you are. So this is a great opportunity. And then finally, it's a way to kind of let business schools know what kind of a communicator you are. Are you, you know, are you eloquent? Are you succinct? Are you, are you funny? Are you a good storyteller? Are you more about numbers? I mean, it's actually helps you kind of give them like a feeling about you, So how do you communicate? What is it that you want to say? Because at the end of the day, many applicants look very similar. So it's really your only chance to differentiate yourself in terms of all of these things: context, uniqueness, fit, and communication. So I think that's kind of what I would say is about why they're asking you, because they need more, right? They have a lot of information, but they need that extra layer of um, of that extra dimension to kind of understand more about you. So this is what the essays are kind of all about.
I just want to build on what you said, Kim, because when we talk about the essay prompts that have changed this year, and off the top of my head, I can think of about 7 schools where essay prompts have changed across like the US and European schools. I think it's important to realize the direction in which a lot of the essay prompts have changed. Increasingly, what we're seeing is specificity. They want to understand the kind of leader you are, the kind of voice you have as a leader. Are you someone who's inclusive? Are you someone who has a specific kind of ambition? Are you looking at growth, personal or professional, with a certain lens which is unique to you? And a lot of the questions have moved from very blue sky thinking or very broad, opinion based, like paragraphs, to something that's really specific, where they want to understand an incident that may illustrate a particular element of who you are as a leader. They want to understand, and that could be in HPS's case. In Kellogg's case, they want to understand a time when you've had to make a really difficult decision. In INSEAD's case, they want to understand, a time when you've had to deal with failure and how that has impacted not only your thought process, but also your relationships with others. And Haas now has a very specific question on a time, asking you about a time when you've really encouraged inclusivity or created an inclusion, an environment that fosters inclusion or, equity. So, a lot of these questions will give you opportunities to talk about really pivotal life moments and share why they are so important to you. You'll also see that, when you look at essays and the way they've changed, one of the ways in which they've changed is they're also offering you slightly more word count to talk about a lot of these moments. And that's really a great thing, because it gives you an opportunity to, display your communication style to the school. This becomes even more important when you think about two important factors. One, schools really want to understand you without the fear of, maybe having the risk of someone using AI in a manner that it shouldn't be used in the essay, theme generation or in the development of your essays. So this really is an opportunity for you to show them who you are in a really honest and authentic manner. The second thing is that if you've given the GMAT Focus Edition and you don't have, you've not got like that whole writing evaluation as part of, the score that you're submitting. So writing a great essay is also a good way for you to give the school a data point on the kind of communicator you are in the absence of maybe a writing assessment score. Another reason, or another direction in which you would see a change, is you're going to see a lot of video essays or video essay components being a part of schools' essay question bank. And this is also an opportunity for you to really go beyond, what the written word looks like, to talk about certain pivotal moments in your life. A lot of the video questions also focus on pivotal moments, which would talk about your perspective building, which would talk about important choices you've made when you've had to work as a leader in an environment that might be very different to what you're used to, and you've had to step out of your comfort zone. So, a lot of those behavioral questions will offer you opportunities to talk about or give a very, very rich picture to the school. It's also an opportunity for you to create an extremely strong storytelling strategy. So you have the chance to now to move away from cliches. You can move away from talking about maybe standard elements which may not really set you apart from a lot of individuals who are from your country who may have very similar life experiences. The kind of questions that you're being asked, whether it is a difficult decision, dealing with failure, having to talk about an inspirational moment which has shaped who you are as a leader, as an HBS, it's an opportunity for you to really talk about a specific kind of thought process or perspective that is yours. And there's really a lot of range for you to talk about things from different aspects of your life. So if you're someone who worries about the fact that, I don't have too many extracurriculars, or I don't have a role that would maybe enable me to talk about a certain kind of, like a certain DEI based perspective with a lot of depth, there are other opportunities for you to talk about other unique elements. So I think the choice is really overwhelming. And what we want to do right now is just talk about how you can now start structuring a lot of the reflection that you're doing at this point to create very strong answers to these question prompts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, and Natasha's kind of talked about, what's changed and how that kind of impacts what you can say and what you can do. And that's great. But I think overall, in general, essays, whether they've changed or not, these are some of the things that we really like to, highlight when it comes to, how to sort of present effective essays. These are the things you need to do, whether they're the old prompts or the new prompts. So I want to just go through this first before we get too much, too deep into what the new prompts are. And that is that, I think for every essay, it's really, it's for when you get started with the essay writing process, it's very important to have this bank of reflections, this sort of bank of things that you can talk about in whatever essay comes your way, right? And those need to be, those stories need to kind of highlight different characteristics about your different, values, experiences, something that you want to say about it. It can't just be a story, that's descriptive. Like, I did this, 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 and this. It has to be kind of like a big takeaway of, and that's how I, develop my leadership style, or how a goal emerged into my, in my profile or something. So that's, an important part of putting those stories together. So you really need to kind of think and brainstorm, what are my stories? What is my bank of stories I can go to kind of talk about myself? And those need to be sort of constructed and written and thought about in the STAR format, right? So every one of these stories needs to cover each element of each aspect of the STAR format. So that's situation, task, action, result, correct? So all of those need to be covered. If your story doesn't cover that, it may not be a very relevant story to tell. So consider that. And show, don't tell. I think we've all heard this forever. And what do we mean by that? Is just that, you need to talk. You need to tell the story. You cannot just say, when I got this role in my current job, it really taught me leadership, and now I'm a great leader. Like, I can't see that. You have to show that to me, right? So that there needs to be more description about what happened, the transformation, and where you ended up. And a lot of times, we tell students, is like, give us everything, tell us all the story, and then we might cut it way back because you don't have the word count, or you don't have, or some of it's not relevant, but you need to put it all out there. You need to show everything before you can start cutting back, okay? Rather than adding, think about subtracting, okay? And the other thing that, that you really need to think about, and all we're seeing more and more of this year, is the business school programs are really asking you for, what are your goals? That's always been a big part of the application, but what are your goals and what's your plan B? Think about this very seriously. Do not, sort of wing it and I'll figure it out, or you have to really, or pick something that's easy, because that's what everyone's going to do. The more kind of distinctive and specific you can make this part of the essay piece when it comes to goals is very important. And then the other thing is that, community focus. And this is one that Natasha and I were speaking about the other day. This is something that, after analyzing many successful essays, this is what emerged. This is something that we really saw people who were successful in getting interviews and getting admits. Their essays went beyond themselves. They didn't just about what they had done and how it impacted them and how it changed them and how it transformed them. They talked about how, what they'd done and what they learned was really then kind of impacted their community, or made them look outward, or you could really see the impact that they were, or the influence, or just the touch points beyond themselves that they were kind of getting to with the stories they were telling. And that seemed to be a very important and common component of many successful essays. And then finally, identifying patterns. I think this is a great, I'm glad we have this point in here, because it's also an amazing skill that, every professional needs to have in general, right? If you're a professional trying to figure out a problem or solve a problem, you need to understand the problem. You need to understand what are common, pitfalls that keep coming up that you need to address. So I'm just saying that identifying patterns is a skill you need to have anyway. And when you're looking at your own story, so if you imagine, you're being handed, a company to fix, or a problem to solve in business, you will look at the whole picture. You will say, this is what I see common. If we can eliminate that, we might solve it. Or if we can add this, we might solve it. So you need to think the same way about yourself and your story and your application. So identifying these patterns and seeing how they can help you tell your story in a way that makes the reader go, oh, I get what this person is about. I get what this person is trying to tell me about their story, in a way that goes, because otherwise you're just giving them a bunch of information and they have to do that work. You need to do it for them, right? And it needs to go beyond stuff like, I'm curious, or I'm hardworking, or I'm, if you look at all my experiences, you can tell that I really care about relationships. Like, that's good. It's better than hardworking and diligence and curiosity. Those are just very, very common, and they're very broad, right? So be as specific as you can about, identifying the patterns that tell a reader who you are. So those are the things that I think you really need to ask yourself: do I have this in my essay, in my essays, and also just in my whole application? Is the narrative being built in a way that is coherent and very easy for the application reader to understand, because they read so many of these, and it's just hard work to ask them to put it all together, right? They're not going to do it. They'll just move on to the next one.
And
So, yeah.
Yes, and I'm just going to build on what Kim just said. If you are structured, so if you create a bank of reflections where you talk about milestones in your life, both like in three areas, maybe your personal life, your university and academic experiences, and then professionally. So if you create a bank of these key moments in your life, you'll start looking at patterns emerge. You'll start seeing that there are ways in which you make choices that impact yourself as well as others around you. And you need to kind of look at it with that star format, because that's when you're really able to lay out every element of your story, where you understand situations, you understand the choices you've made, and you understand the impact not just on yourself, but also on people and communities around you. But if you do this in a structured manner, everything that we've said on this slide will just kind of come together, and you'll start identifying patterns, because you will start seeing that there's a pattern to what you think matters in your life. So it's important to lay things out, and sometimes you'll be surprised that something that you thought wasn't really that important or impressive turns out to be some of the most important patterns that really reflect your value system and the kind of conscious choices that you make. And when Kim spoke about the fact that the most impactful essays we see are the essays that really are able to talk about impact on communities and people and situations around you. I'll give you like the difference. Like, it's like talking about the fact that there were certain incidents or certain life events that happened that made you a resilient person, that made you strong, that made you realize the value of hard work. And then there's also a way of saying that, listen, you know what, when I was small, I saw that, my school didn't have X resources, so like I pooled money together with people and we set this up for the school. Or my sibling wasn't able to access something, so I just spoke to my parents and I gave them access to a particular resource. And then you say that, listen, when I started working, I saw that the company was working in a way that was very inefficient. I spotted ways, I acted on them, and that really made a difference because it solved how, or it improved our relationship with customers. So when you kind of start thinking about impact in a manner that really goes beyond only imparting certain values to yourself, you're able to demonstrate to the school far more effectively that you are a leader who thinks about the bigger picture. You are someone who kind of understands that when companies make decisions or certain levers need to be moved, you know why they need to be moved. So everything that we said on this slide needs to work together. And this is regardless of, like Kim said, whether it's the old prompt or a new prompt or a prompt that's been not changed for some time. With that, what I really want to do now is just move to the three strategies that you need to employ this year. And I'll illustrate that with some of the new prompts, so that it makes it clear in terms of what you need to do. And before I move to that slide, I'll also tell you, just keep posting your questions in the comments section, and we'll kind of keep going through it and we'll reply to it as soon as we talk about the strategies that we want you to be aware of. There are three ways in which you need to think about making an impact. And it has to do with the titles that we've allocated under each of these three tips. The first is think about how you're going to demonstrate self awareness. Two, think about how you're going to go beyond yourself, because that is really a critical part that sets you apart from anyone else with similar life experiences. And three, you need to think about your orientation to action. It's not enough to merely know what a situation looks like in your life, but it's important to think about what are the key values that mean something to you, which is why you kind of recognize when something is important in your life. You need to focus on demonstrating or bringing out elements of the story which tell us why. Why is an incident important? Why does the ADCOM need to know about this? Why do you want to demonstrate certain values through this incident? When you keep asking yourself the why of why a particular incident needs to be there in an essay, it is possible for you to realize what elements of that particular situation you want to talk about. What is the perspective building you want to emphasize? So, whether it's Wharton's essay one, which talks about why Wharton and what are your goals and why is Wharton a key part of that journey, whether it's Kellogg essay two, where you have to talk about a difficult decision that you've made. This is a new essay prompt, right? This year, when you want to talk about a difficult decision you've had to make, and what are the elements that are important in that difficult decision. Whether it's Haas's essay two, where Haas is really asking you to talk about your goals and to talk about why Haas is an important part of it. If you are aware of why certain pieces of your ambition or certain key influences are important to you, it's possible for you to then create an impactful narrative which is really genuine. Number two, go beyond yourself. As we've spoken in our previous slide, it is important to realize that the most impact that you're going to make is by telling the school how you have been able to use a lot of your self awareness, to use your perspective to influence the outcomes or to influence or inspire others as a leader or even as a peer. The questions that you need to really think about is when you're laying any life incident out in a star story, you need to focus on the result or the impact that you want to talk about. That impact needs to be the impact on yourself, the impact on others, the immediate impact on others, and the enduring impact that you would have created. Sometimes this might not be something that is really impressive, but what you're looking at really building is a set of patterns. You're not really looking at having these superstar moments. Each incident may not be impressive as of itself, but it's important to really look at building a pattern. So when you're attempting Wharton Essay 2 and you're thinking about how you're going to contribute to the community, You're thinking about all these incidents in your life that you can really place together and talk about or reference them in a manner that demonstrates that you're really genuine about wanting to contribute to a community. When you're talking about Kellogg SA1, the new Kellogg SA1, and you're really, being asked to talk about how you're going to contribute to the Kellogg community or your cohort, it's possible again for you to draw on these bank of stories. HBS's new essay prompts talk about, wanting to understand who you are as a leader. They want to understand, how do you kind of, what are the important influences on you as a leader and how you impact others as a leader. They want to also understand your growth, an example of how you've demonstrated curiosity, how has that influenced your growth. So thinking about a lot of the life moments where you've gone beyond yourself, where you've been able to demonstrate impact, will allow you to talk about these these incidents or these specific moments that you want to communicate in a far more effective manner. The third is to talk about an orientation to action. When you talk about an orientation to action, what you really want to understand is how do you kind of view issues and problems around you? What do you do when you see injustice? When you're asked, when you look at the Haas diversity essay, when you're asked to talk about a moment in time where you have really contributed or you have experienced, inequity, where you've been where you've had to take action, or you've understood what justice means or belonging means or a lack of belonging means. It's important at that point in time to be able to think about moments in time where you faced injustice, where you've seen problems, and what do you do when you see it? Because at the end of the day, what you need to demonstrate to school is not that you are someone who recognizes patterns, but you also do something about it in a small manner. And again, what you want to also show is how these lessons or these key lessons from each incident have influenced your perspective. How does that influence the kind of action that you are oriented to or actions that you take in the future? Michigan Ross has an interesting essay this year where they've changed it. It's their second essay, where they really ask you to talk about, fostering a community of leaders, right, at Michigan Ross. And what they really ask you to do is to think about something that really makes you unique. And one of these is one of the options is to talk about how you've overcome a challenge. What makes you excited to get up in the morning every day? Tell us of a time when you've made a difference in your community or with an individual as well. And again, it's important to remember that when you are able to reflect on the way you take action, when you see a problem around you, will go a long way in you being able to talk to these prompts with a high degree of, of relatability, and also as a genuine response, an organic response. And I think these three elements, if you combine it with the advice that we've given you in the previous slide, it will allow you to tackle a lot of these new prompts, which are highly specific in what they're asking you to talk about as a leader, as a potential business leader. It will give you a lot of, it will give you a high degree of genuinity. With that, we come to our Q&A slide, and I think we're going to post in the comments section a Google form, and you can fill that Google form and send that across. Once you submit those answers, it qualifies you to gain a complimentary service from us. This is a service that we usually offer. It's a paid service, which is a resume evaluation. So, just fill the Google form that we're putting in the comment section right now, put your details in it, and just hit submit, and we will reach out to you for this complimentary service. Now, I think what we'd really like you to do is maybe talk about your questions around the essays. And I think Kim has answered one question in the comment section itself. But
Yeah, I
no, if there
have.
are,
They're
yeah,
not. There don't seem to be too many questions about the essays at the moment.
yeah.
They're about other aspects of the applicant's profile, and someone has
Hmm.
asked about the GMAT, which we're not talking about today. So at the moment, I don't see any questions, but please add more.
Yes. I think I can see, Piyush, you've mentioned that you're applying to Duke, Kellogg, and Columbia. And there are changes to definitely to the Kellogg questions, the essay questions. Duke, not so much. Columbia is giving you an option in the PPIL essay. So not only do you have the option of talking about a time when you can speak to one of the five pillars of the PPIL program, but you're also given the option to talk about a time when you fostered, an inclusive environment where you've fostered teamwork, a greater sense of community within the organization. And I think that's great because it gives you more options to talk about something with more confidence in a professional situation. So, this will give you more chances to talk about it. I think Kellogg's essay one now packs a lot more into what they're asking you about, because they're asking you why MBA, why Kellogg, why now, and how will you contribute to the community. So that's like a lot for you to answer in one. Essay two is maybe a variation on last year's essay one, where you talk about like a difficult situation. But I think I'm really interested to see how people will tackle the why MBA, why now, and why Kellogg. So I think that's a lot to do. That's a lot to answer for in 450 words. So I think that's great. I think another person mentioned that they're applying to HBS, to Booth, and to Kellogg. So again, Kellogg and HBS both have changed their prompts. Booth, no, but I think if you're applying to Kellogg and HBS, you'll have a huge bank of experiences that you can draw on, which will add value to all the applications that you're building. So in case there are any more questions, you can definitely ask us here. Otherwise, you can just hit submit on the Google form that we're adding. I see another person applying to HBS, Kellogg, and Columbia. So all three extremely popular, and we've spoken about those essays. So I'm hoping that you get some value from the advice that we're giving you right now, and you can apply to those schools as well. If you want to reach out to us, you can scan the QR code. You can also reach out to us at the email address and to the phone number that we've mentioned over here. Kim, there's a question addressed to you.
Okay, yeah. I think, I think the question has come out of, how that this person, Mike, Big Mike, I think we were talking a lot about impact, and he was saying, I have a lot of impact in my community and in the places around, but I don't have impact in my job role. So how do I think, when you're talking about the programs that I think you're applying to, says Booth,
HBS and Kellogg and Booth.
yeah, that something like, you will probably have an opportunity in all of those that I can think of right now. Natasha, you might correct me.
I do actually have a view over there, so I'll add
go
to.
ahead. Why don't you go ahead then?
Okay. I think one of the things that you need to remember, Mike, is that it's not going to be just your essays that are going to help you create impact, but it's also the resume. So one of the first documents that the admissions committees will look at will be your resume. And what you need to think about is ways in which you can really demonstrate a diverse set of impact areas through your resume, whether that's through community building activities, whether that is through your job responsibilities. You mentioned you're a paralegal. So while it doesn't seem like there are a lot of impact areas that would stand up to, I'm assuming you're comparing it with other MBA applicants in different fields, but there are always ways for you to really be true to yourself and to talk about diverse experiences, because anything that you say in your essay will not really land if it's not backed up by something that's there in your resume. So I think I just want to mention that, because it might seem like you're leaning a lot on making an impact through the essay, whereas the essay is really going to be one document that adds context. But what it needs to really speak to is other parts of your application. And one of the most important parts will be your resume. So you need to really think about how you're going to balance impact out across these documents. And yeah, I can see the Google form is up. So you can just click on that if you'd like us to give you, just work with you on your resume. You can do that. The form's live only for 30 minutes. So, just send us your details through that form. There's another question that I can see. Do admissions committees not prefer applications that mention they want to do MBA for a function switch because of current job markets? That's a really large question, and it's not so much related to essays, but I can give you a broad answer. So a lot of people do an MBA, they do think about function switches, but what you really need to be able to demonstrate is, A, do you have transferable skills that will that will kind of foster that kind of career switch? You need to not rely on only the MBA providing you with the skills or the opportunities or the learning experiences to make that switch. You need to also be able to demonstrate that leading up to the MBA, you've had a job which has given you certain transferable skills that will aid a transition to a different function post your MBA. You need to have either projects that you would have done which would ensure that you're able to demonstrate that you've done something about your interest in a particular area which is different from your current area of work. So that's a much larger discussion, but in I think in a nutshell, this is what you need to be able to tell them. They are sensitive to the fact that there are job market, people, the job market's volatile. There are people who have lost their jobs. They are sensitive to that. But if you're going to demonstrate that you want to make a switch, you need to be able to show that you've done something about it even before you're applying for your MBA. So I think that answers the question. Okay. So in case you have any questions, like I said, reach out to us. Or what you can also do is fill up the form, and we can help you with that resume evaluation or looking at your resume and giving you advice there, personalized. Okay. So I think that's that. For anyone who is asking us about the GMAT, I think GMAT Club has a lot of information, and there is a lot of information out there. So I think, if you are taking your GMAT now, then all the best. I think what you might benefit from is actually a resume discussion, because rather than typing a lot of information over here, it'll be easier for you to reach out and have a more comprehensive conversation around your resume with us. So I would suggest that you should, send us your details and take advantage of the fact that we are offering this particular.
Yeah, fill out the form, and then we can sort of go through some of this with you and talk to you about how to
Yeah.
position. I think just to kind of leave on a note about these new essay topics, and I think that the idea that they're giving you an opportunity to shine. I think it may be the case that something like the new HBS topics are so directed that people feel I'm just going to answer the question, like that's all I have to do. I don't have to really kind of come up with a story. But I do think that it's very important you think of it still as a cohesive, coherent presentation of yourself, and you don't want to come across in those multiple questions as seeming like multiple different people or with multiple different approaches, or so you need to think about being very consistent in your narrative about yourself throughout the entire application. So whatever has changed, may have changed to get more directed answers, and that just kind of tells you a little bit more about what business schools are looking for, and that's a great clue, right? Because it helps you prepare everything along those lines. But I think it's also important to be aware that they do want to, like I just keep saying, they do really expect you to present yourself to them in a way that is easy to understand and where they can just say yes, because they want to say yes. They don't really want to say no, because it makes their job a lot easier. So remember that as you go into these new essays, and think about making yourself, of course, look like a perfect applicant, that I'm sure you all are, because I don't think that people, are unsuccessful in this process because they aren't good applicants. It's just maybe because they didn't execute the process well, and there's a lot of strategy involved. So keep that in mind. I have one more question here from Chitij. Do people with higher age and higher work experience, around 10 years, have a comparative disadvantage while applying to US colleges? Not necessarily. However, yeah, if you see the average age, it's not I mean, the average work experience, it's not 10 years, but there are always the outliers in every class, but those people are typically exceptional for one reason or the other.
Yeah.
So think about whether that's you, and
Absolutely.
maybe look at other programs.
Yeah, I would say that European programs are far more accepting of individuals with a higher work experience, and also, that, like Kim mentioned, there are outliers even in US MBA classes, but it's also important for you to reach out to admissions committees and have conversations with them because they're very open and welcoming of individuals who want to talk to them about, whether they qualify and whether their age puts them at a disadvantage. They may have a lot of suggestions for you, which you might be surprised. It's not really to your advantage to apply and then figure that out. But if you are seriously considering US programs, then reach out to admissions committees and have an open discussion with them. They are really welcoming of these kind of conversations. So do reach out to them, and you can figure out whether it suits you. But I think one thing that I'd want to add, Kim, to your program, to your advice around tackling new essay prompts is also that when you look at your essays, you need to remember that the essays are one part of a larger application. And it's important that even though the essay prompt may have changed, I would always advise someone to go through the entire application form because there will be smaller subjective questions throughout the application form. And what you don't want to do is focus on creating this great essay, this very specific essay, and then finding out that there are other subjective questions where you could have used matter that you would have put into the essay. You kind of realize that you have to rethink your entire strategy. So just go through application forms, start working on application forms earlier, and then sit and like chalk out the kind of incidents and life experiences that you want to really talk about in your essays. Kim, there's another question. If I start the application process today, how many colleges would it be ideal to apply to in round one? Now, honestly, Farooq, while that's a highly individual question, I would say that given that you're going to be thinking or planning for at least 2 essays per school, and I'm assuming you're applying to US schools, I would say realistically, if you're starting today, then maybe you want to think about 2 or 3 in round one. That would be realistic, given that you may be holding down a full-time job and strategizing other elements of your application.
And this is
So
assuming you have the GMAT done.
yes, assuming you have the GMAT done. So yeah, but I think for anyone who's on today's call and you want to reach out to us, use the contact details that are on your screen. If you want us to give you advice on your resume, which is customized, fill up the form and submit it to us, and we can help you. And I think it's been a pleasure to speak to about essays this year because it's something that Kim and I are really, really passionate about. We love reading MBA essays. So yeah, I think this has been a pleasure speaking about new essay prompts. All the best, Farooq. If you have your GMAT score, that's great. So yeah, so I think it's been a pleasure. Reach out to us for more details. We're great. We're always happy to have a chat. So thanks, Kim. Anything else you want to add? Otherwise, I think
No,
we're
no. Have a great evening, everyone. Great day wherever you are, and please reach out to us. Thanks.
Thank you. See you, everyone.